Hello. I just want to say that spoilers will be minimal, and I will note when I start talking about the story in earnest. However, background visuals may have very light gameplay spoilers, but it's probably nothing you won't see in a trailer. Still, if that's not your jam and you want to go in completely blind, close your eyes and I'll see you next time. Hey, it's me, Pat. I played Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, and I pronounced none of those words right. And here's what I think after 2 hours. Have you ever wanted to be French? It doesn't matter. I started playing this game because I heard Daredevil, Shadowheart, and Gollum were in it, which is not a crossover of generational talent I thought I would see, much less in a video game. Now, I have to admit I didn't actually check out what the gameplay was like. I just knew two things: banger voice acting cast and that it had a parry and was turn-based. I didn't even look at a trailer, largely because it looked so damn pretty and I thought my 2080 Super would fall apart and burst into flame trying to do it, especially since it listed a 3070 SD recommended card. But it was on Game Pass, so I downloaded it and off I went. What was the worst that could happen? Let's talk about performance.
For those who come after.
Apparently, nothing could happen. It was fine. I have a 12700 and a 2080 Super, and I set everything to medium, and this thing runs in such a way that I don't even notice that anything is low. There's no stutters or anything. It's a gorgeous game, and my old rig isn't keeping me from that joy. Sadly, the options screen leaves a lot to be desired. It lacks a mouse camera speed setting, which is straight up alarming and very strange. I don't know which part to put this under, but backing out of a menu is set to escape as a default, which is also very strange. It's not unifying your keyboard and mouse. It really wants you to play on a gamepad. It feels like a mid-2000s default setting. At 400 DPI and minimal camera settings, which I'm not even sure works on the mouse, it still feels a little fast. This might actually be designed for a console first. It even says you might want to use a controller, which is strange for a game that is ostensibly run by menus. Like, there's an action element to it, sure, with the dodging and stuff, but it's a turn-based game as a whole. It's a turn-based RPG. It is a menu game, and those tend to lead towards a mouse and keyboard, or at least the ability to interact with the menu with mouse and keyboard. I have fond memories of DOS, but I'm also happy that it is dead and gone. Setting my DPI to 400 helped solve this problem while outside of a menu, but inside of a menu, of course, the mouse cursor then now moves very slowly. So I have to hit the DPI buttons on my mouse to put it up to 1600 again, just so I could comfortably move around a menu. Options aside, I am very happy that it runs well in my rig because the visuals and sound is pretty good. Let's start with the sound. Which I admit, I don't remember much of it, if I'm being honest, which is good. While noticeably good is great, not noticing the quality of the sound has value as well. That means it is doing its job and I'm not getting taken out of the game. The music, though, the music is beautiful and is what jumped out at me. Unfortunately, it kept jumping out at me, with one lady singing like she needed to pay off the mob. That is to say, very well, but she was also everywhere because she owed the mob a lot of money. I hope the one-woman whale steps back as I go deeper into the game. The visuals look stunning, crystal clear, but I must tell you that while I find graphics great, I guess I'm a very mechanical person. In fact, I want the graphics to serve a purpose. For example, in FF7 Rebirth, there is a moment in which Aerith accepts her heritage. One moment that is far improved by more facial expressions, something that the older PS1 could not provide. So that's how I'm going to approach graphics. Pretty is good, but the pretty must serve a purpose, and does it ever. The main gameplay area is gorgeous, flowers flow from the sky in an endless dance, and there is a bit more where graphical style and quality matters. That Expedition 33, if you have not gathered, is going to be a tragic game, and when you want tragedy, you want the characters to feel as real as possible. You want people to be able to relate to them as much as possible. And the graphics and the visual fidelity and all of those funny words do work together to give you that impression that these people are real and draw you into the story and make you emotionally entangled with them. But that's more spoiler territory, so let's move on to gameplay. Expedition 33 gave me something I never knew I wanted: parry mechanics and a turn-based system. Yep, it's a turn-based RPG that gives me Persona vibes, even though that I, never played Persona. Look, you know how some things just feel true, like how Persona has gibberish lyrics and E33 has that one woman singing the shit out of every track? Anyway, your offense when in combat is classic turn-based strategy. You select what to do in battle, and you can use skills using SP, which you gain by attacking or other means such as dodging while you have a specific skill equipped. There's probably more later in the game as much as the game revolves around it. Well, also classic is a strong word because there's a gunblade mechanic with many skills. You get a little QTE when you're attacking. Time it right and you get extra damage or extra effects. Miss it and you feel embarrassed. Now, I'm old and my reflexes are still on point, but I found the timing for these QTEs a little weird. The imagery for it alone is very strange to me, or at least very unusual to me. Instead of a circle or whatnot, it is a weird diamond thing, and you have to hit a moving thing that is going around the diamond at the yellow spot. Additionally, it feels like it's moving around, like the diamond is moving around while it's asking you to get the timing down, not unlike FF7's dancing mini-games.
What a performance!
But, here's the thing, it might actually be moving. It just feels like it's moving because there's a lot of action on the screen when you're casting spells and attacking. So that's enough to throw me off for a bit. Defense is a bit more than just having stats, as with most turn-based RPGs, as you can dodge and parry. I think parry has a much smaller window, but gives you the benefit of counterattacking if you block the last attack in an enemy's sequence. As an added bonus and further blurring the lines between action and turn-based, you can just shoot people in the face if you want to. Getting used to the gameplay might also feel weird for me because they introduce so many terms. It's not a skill, it's a Pictos, and you can equip it, and then when you equip it and learn it, you can assign it to a Luminous slot, which also takes up other Luminous slots depending on how, and so on and so forth, which is fine. I like complex mechanics and systems that intertwine. The problem with this is that I'm already being introduced to a new world. There's a reason we default to words such as skills and stuff, because that is a language you understand. If you played games before, you understand what this is supposed to mean, what it's going to eventually do for you. And now I have to both understand the language they're using in the game as well as the language of the story. While I'm on that topic, grinding doesn't appear to exist. Baddies do not respawn after you rest, so it's not a Souls-like, thank God. So from there, you can probably see that the focus is both on skill and story, because you can dodge, I think, pretty much every attack in the game. There is a mini elite at the starting area that allows you to beat it. If you can dodge or parry its attacks, it usually one-shots, at most two-shots your guys. But if you can get the parries down or the dodges down, you will wear them down eventually. All extra damage does in that fight is give you the convenience of not having to dodge as much. So that's very interesting for me for a turn-based game, because most of the time turn-based games are based on stats, not necessarily raw. You still have to use the stats and abilities properly, but dodging and parrying are reliant on your player's skill rather than the stats of the characters in the game, which is probably going to drive some people insane, especially if they're expecting a game that doesn't require reflexes, because look at it. It's got a banger voice cast. It's a RPG. Most RPGs don't care if you have insane reflexes. It's like being asked to drive a car, but when you get in the car, instead of a steering wheel and pedals, you get a bike inside the car and you need to balance on that bike or the car also tips over. Again, that can be extremely frustrating, especially if people are just here for the story part, and now is probably a good time to talk about the story. I'll try to keep the spoilers to a minimum in this story section, although that's going to be easy since I've only played it for 2 hours, and I'm going to focus mostly on how they delivered the story rather than the story itself. However, spoilers will still be present even though they are pre-release spoilers such as stuff from trailers and advertisements, which for many people is an acceptable amount of spoilers because those are spoilers that set the tone and create hype rather than ruin the work of a writer. That said, if you still want to avoid spoilers, go to here. Okay, dokie. In Expedition 33, you play as Gustav, voiced by Daredevil Charlie Cox. He's tossing rocks at the heavy of the story, the Paintress. Every year, that big number in the distance drops by 1, and everyone of vast age goes Well, poof, Shadow Art is there making jokes. It's very bleak. Gustav is a member of Expedition 33, which is not the 33rd expedition, but the 67th expeditions for reasons they laugh about while dropping a lampshade on your head. He and 15-year-old Shadowheart are off with a team of quirky characters, including the suspiciously barefoot Lune, and set off on their expedition. Grammage? That's a problem I'll get back to. Expedition 33 is all over social media, and the first thing I see about it usually is that the first hour of the game was harrowing, much like the first 5 minutes of Up. However, I didn't really get into it because I was mostly confused about what was going on. While the story was told very well, it also assumed I knew certain things going in, which is a respectable ask if I paid for it. But I got it on Game Pass and clicked it because I wanted to play something that wasn't Dynasty Warriors. And, I knew that Gollum, Daredevil, and Shadowheart were in it. At some point, I wasn't even sure who was in trouble. Because clearly something's going down and some of the wording was a little vague. So that's something to keep in mind if you plan on downloading it without really knowing what's up. Just go watch a trailer. Don't be like me. Anyway, that said, it is a beautifully told hour and funny because every now and then they'd have you do a combat sequence that is either a dance or
Dodge your lady's beautiful moves.
something, and it's funny. But it does break up the monotony. It does remind you that this is not a walking simulator. This is a turn-based game, and by golly, you're gonna learn how to play it. All in all, a okay way to intertwine both story and gameplay. Except for that weird mime. That guy is Jesus. So it goes without saying that you're gonna hear a lot of talking in that first hour, and story talking at that, and that's great. I love the voices. It does bring a little problem to the fore, at least a problem for me. It's multilingual. Great. The thing is, people are speaking in French terms or swearing in French and going straight to English, as if to say, yeah, we speak French, enough to swear in it while stressed, indicating that it is our internal monologue language, but we'll speak English most of the time. The doylist explanation for this is that, well, more people speak English because the French were worse at colonizing people. Which is fine, but I can't think of a Watsonian explanation for it. I can't think of an in-universe explanation for it. So that distracted me a little. It is a story-driven game, a role-playing game, and I wanted to get into the heads of the characters a little. And that little language switch stuck with me a little. Language as a whole, as I indicated in the gameplay section, tends to be an issue. You're already learning a whole new universe. Each term is different and acts strange during gameplay. I may have been sleepy when I played it, but the Pictos thing I mentioned earlier was the one that really threw me for a loop. I just relied on my parry skills to get through the game, and I'm gonna figure out this Pictos thing later. I'll just equip it and see what happens. It's a little overwhelming, and I can see why people would be turned off by that point. Or at least take a wee bit of a break. But the important question is, the most important question, I guess, for a lot of people, is that does it draw you into the universe in the first hour? It's harrowing, yeah. In that hour and a half, there are 2 moments in which I had to go, Jesus Christ, we're doing this, huh? It can get pretty brutal. But they sold this partially on the strength of the voice actors. Jennifer English coming strong off Baldur's Gate 3 and Charlie Cox high on Born Again, and they delivered very well. Look, they didn't sound like Shadowheart or Daredevil. I just like making that joke unless you were really looking for it, which is important. And honestly, I only realized it was Charlie Cox because Daredevil grunts are very, very distinct, and Gustav grunts a lot. The two of them felt like they were part of the universe, lack of an accent and language issues aside, which helped very much sell that universe to me. As confused as I was still in it. I cannot imagine how much in it people who knew what they were getting into are. Although if I have any real complaint about Gustav, is that writing-wise and performance-wise, he seems to shake off the shock of a terrible thing that happens in a blink. I understand, he might have been preparing for that moment in a while, but it's still it's pretty bad. At the very least, he might be taking it very stoically, voice-wise, which is great for storytelling. It's nice to be treated as an adult for a change, and I don't need people screaming, "I'm sad," at me. It might not have been the best or right time for it, as the player is currently experiencing a brand new world and learning a lot of things. A different switch is engaged in their brain, and that switch is just understanding what is happening, as well as a system, the dodging and parrying system, that they might not have expected, or at least found more difficult than they'd like. And when your brain is processing stuff like that, it might be difficult to pick up on the nuances of acting, and you might just see it as flat. I'm not saying that's what everybody saw or even experienced, but that's what I experienced. Personally, I would have preferred the emotion to be a little louder, if that makes any sense. That all said, yeah. I'm interested in playing it more than those first 2 hours, and will put out a review after I finish the game. The gameplay interests me greatly, even though the vast majority of people seem to not like the combination of turn-based and dodging and parrying. That gameplay aspect is pretty much made for me. The story, while not showing its hand a lot, creates many questions that I want answered. The imagery is evocative and the world is interesting. I think there are worse ways to take up your time than with E33. Strong recommendation for me, a person who likes parry mechanics, turn-based gameplay, great voice acting, and games that run well on old rigs. Also, I had no idea what the hell indigo was. Apparently, I thought that was just purple. It did not look indigo on my screen. That's green, right? That's green. Anyway, come back next time for the post-game review. It is on Steam, and it is on Game Pass. I'll be streaming my first playthrough of the game on twitch.tv/PatinatorTV, and you should go there because I have bad jokes. Thanks for watching. Thanks for passing by. You know what to do. I am Patinator. I will see you later.